In this video, I'll be talking about education in Finland. Finland is known for having the best education system, one of the best. And let's see in this video what it is all about. So many Scandinavian countries are known for their education system, and Finland is probably the best, for which we have read about and we have seen so many examples over the internet. So let us see what are the facets which make it the best. Now, starting with the fundamentals. Now, what are the fundamentals on which their education system is built? So, built to encourage people to choose their own path. So, it is very important that right at the outset, we are clear with what objectives our education systems are built on. Once that is clear, then we can lay a very good foundation. So, their foundation is basically to encourage people to choose their own path. And for that, you have to provide all the options. You have to sensitize them. You have to provide the basic skills. So that is the fundamental on which it is built. Each student, regardless of the socio-economic background or any other factor, is given equal opportunity. And this was initiated in the 1970s. So now we have to appreciate one thing, that in our education system, all the facilities, all the good facilities, the best facilities, in fact, there should be only the best facilities everywhere. And these should be available for everyone, irrespective of from which background they are coming into. And now, through various provisions of RTE, we are trying to implement that in our country, in our state of Meghalaya. But this in Finland, it started in 1970. So we have to understand that they had that edge. They have started really early on this. And this is the fundamental, which is very, very important even for us. The next point being, students need to have resilience and skills to learn how to learn. Now, if you have read the NEP 2020, which our country came up with, we are now mentioning this learning how to learn. And this is the most important, one of the most fundamental things that education should ensure. And it was right there from the very beginning in Finnish education fundamentals. So this is something which is common between us and them, but obviously they started way before us. Now, healthy learning through insight and encouragement, not grading of performance or competition between students. So it's not like they don't do assessments, they do assessments, but that data is not published, and it is used more of a analytical tool to understand what the student is all about, what are the weaknesses, what are the strengths, and what kind of education that particular student would want. So the assessment is more aimed at understanding and improving the education system in itself. So this is a very important fundamental that I think we need to understand and adapt in our school education. Now, Finland plans to invest 4% of its GDP into R&D. Research and development is very, very important in any sector. And as we evolve in all the technologies surrounding education and otherwise also, the countries which will invest more in R&D will take the lead. And taking the lead, basically you are controlling the entire market. So essentially, this 4% of GDP which goes into R&D in education will give great results. One other thing which is very interesting is that Finland ranks third after Israel and South Korea for investment in education. So what percentage of GDP we are investing in education? So the returns on it are something which are probably we cannot understand right now, but in the long term, definitely it will give a great multiplier to the GDP. Of course, the incubation time, the gestation period is long, but this is something we cannot do without. And the last one is very interesting, that they want to have an education system which provides opportunity to everyone to go up till PhD. So now we are talking about here free education, under the Right to Education Act in India, and how we are talking about age 6 to 14. But they are going much beyond that, and they are trying to create an ecosystem, an environment which gives the facilities free of cost, most of them, especially till the school education, especially till the age of 18. And even they are looking forward for everyone to do PhD. So that is the vision, and that is the planning on which everything is based in this Finnish model of education. Now coming to the simple architecture, but simple but yet very, very profound and very, very detailed and very, very, they have really cracked the code. So what is it? Now less number of schooling hours as compared to other schools in other countries. Now here we are talking about minimum number of hours under the RTE, minimum number of hours for which the school should operate, and some of the schools have really long hours. They start 8 in the morning until 3 p.m. in the afternoon. So now in the Finland system of education, especially in school education, they have very less number of schooling hours but very productive hours, and how they have achieved we'll get to know through the course of the presentation. But this is very, very important that we do not burden the students with unnecessary periods, with unnecessary subjects, and then thus reducing the overall hours for the school will eventually make it very, very interesting. Now, one of the very interesting fact, they're made to learn accounting by running a school cafe. So every school has a cafe and it is being run by the student itself. They are keeping accounts, they are doing sales, they are doing promotions, they are doing hygiene control, food safety, all aspects of running a canteen. And in the process, they are learning. And these are the life skills which are much more important than anything else. So they are making it happen through the available infrastructure which is there in the school itself, by running the cafe, by running other outlets, this and that. So this is something which we really need to adapt in our education. Now there are no school uniforms. So the school student, they feel free. There's a scope for expression. They do not feel burdened, or they do not feel confined that they have to act in a certain way, they have to dress up in a certain way. So this basically means that a lot of the degree of freedom is very high in terms of schooling, and the degree of expression is very high. Now obviously, in terms of when we look at the Indian perspective, to bring in equality, that there is no distinction between different classes, maybe the idea of uniform is there, but eventually as we grow into a mature society, I think the uniforms are something which is restrictive of expression, and eventually they should go away. Now, early identification of learning difficulties and tailored support. Now, what happens is that we are talking about the idea of special schools and how children with special needs will have to go to those special schools, inclusive education. We are talking about all that. But now what we are not doing, and what Finland is doing, is that they are very early, they are identifying what are the learning disabilities, difficulties, and they are giving tailored support in the same school where general education is being given. They are also giving all kind of tailored support to these students which are having learning difficulties. So this is what the right way of implementing inclusive education, and is something we need to learn. Now, Finnish schools facilitate cooperation over competition. So when we do assessments with students, and when we publish rankings, that makes the whole process very competitive, and all they are thinking is all about the exam, getting maximum marks in the exam. So that becomes the objective, rather than learning, rather than empowering ourselves, rather than enjoying the whole learning process. So here they focus more on cooperation. They do not really publish those scores and lists and rankings. The assessments are basically for understanding of the system, of the teachers, of the schooling system, of the education authorities, and they basically want to promote more cooperation over this competition. Now, free and compulsory education till the age of 18. In India, we have right to education, where we talk about ages 6 to 14 and we give free education. They have been talking about this since a long time back. Till the age of 18, they give free education. Now, free education, will come to that it means a lot of things: free food, free transport, and other things as well. Structured guidance and counseling is mandatory in all grades. I indulge myself in a lot of career counseling. Whenever I have time, I try to go to a school and do career counseling. I personally feel, when I was in school, if somebody had done that, I probably would have saved a lot of time in doing the right courses, in doing the right degree courses, in doing the right postgraduate. And it would have been very fruitful in that regard, and meaningful, so that we get education pertaining to the field we want to work in. So that's something which happens with structured guidance and counseling. And It is mandatory in these Finnish schools and starting from a very early grade. So that is something which we can learn from Finland. Now coming to certain special features which are there. We talked about free and compulsory education till the age of 18 in Finland schools. So all meals and transport are absolutely free. Free meals started in the year 1948. Now look at that number. So whereas in our case, the midday meal scheme or the PM portion scheme started in early 2000, they started in 1948, so 50 years basically before we did. And it's not just that, it's also all the learning materials are also free till the age of 18. So this is something, the entire system is free. So education till 18 is really free and world class. So that is what we need to understand. Infrastructure is world class and offers all options. And all schools are funded by state from the taxes raised. So more or less they are having public schools only run by government. There are very few private schools, but even if private schools are there, they're funded by the state. So essentially the entire schooling education is absolutely free, and they everywhere it's world class infrastructure. Right, so they have the same kind of standards they have to maintain, and they do maintain every year. Tests are there, but they are not published and used to analyze and improve the process. All schools have all facilities, so parents do not have to stress about. Now in India, what is happening? Parents are busy scouting for the best school. There is so much of competition getting into the the top schools or the schools which are seen as the top schools. So now because there is a degree of difference and the fees, parents are needed to spend so much on top education. So now in Finland, all schools which are mostly government schools or public schools, they all have the facilities. So in each community, the school is there, so you don't have to go anywhere else. So you just admit your child in the community school, in the public school, in the government school, because all schools are having all the facilities. So parents do not have to really bother about finding the right school, because every school in Finland is a right school and they are of the same standard. Now, one more very interesting feature is that they have frequent outdoor recess and breaks when it comes to between sessions. 15-minute break after every class, and where children can just go outside in the park, take fresh air and relax and play among themselves. So this is very common in all the Finnish schools, and this they have really seen that provides them the energy to again come back fresh for the next session. And now coming to formal schooling, it starts at the age of 7 in India. In Meghalaya, it starts at the age of 6 when they enter class 1, but before that they have pre-primary. So given the late start, basically they do a very good foundation of the early childhood education and care, which will be come to that in the next slide. But yes, so late start to this thing, so that they have a very, they enjoy the early years of learning in the preschool, in the nurseries, and they really build the foundation which is required for the schooling. Now interestingly and very useful subjects, for example, now look at this, home economics. So now what are we learning in school? We are learning various things. We are learning advanced mathematics, calculus, but what is the practical implication of that? I do not remember ever of using calculus or using, trigonometry or Pythagoras theorem for anything which is practical at home. Otherwise, on the other hand, I really wish when I was in school, I could have learned practical skills like cooking, like driving, and all these, filling up my taxes, how to save money, what are the savings instruments, how do we maintain the house economy. So all these things. So they have very interesting and very relevant subjects like home economics, media literacy, how to deal with media, what is anxiety, what is ICT, what is multi-literacy. Now there are various skills which we need to know, AI, LLM, ChatGPT, this, that. So multi-literacy. So all these things, if they were taught in school, I think by the time we would graduate, we will be really skilled individuals. And this is something which we really need to look into in India. Now in their upper secondary, the students can create their own schedules, what they want to learn, what are the subjects they want to learn, what are the skills they want to learn, which classes, which courses they want to join. They're given that freedom, and with this freedom, they really own up the responsibility of their own learning schedule, and they grow up, they mature very fast because they are owning up to their own decisions right from an early age. At university level, for example, most courses have open book exams. Now this is really, we need to consider this even at the school level, that why should there be a need for students to really memorize all the facts, rote learning, keep on putting all the efforts in learning and remembering things rather than understanding, and rather than working on the analytical ability and the comprehensiveness of the whole curriculum. So this is what something we need to deliberate even at the school level. Now coming to their adult education, for those who are already working and those who are already above 18, they have different courses. So it's a continuous learning. So in Finland, it's not just about school education, it's not just about college education, it's beyond that also. Learning continues, and they have more than 100,000 courses for these people who want to upgrade their skill or learn a new thing. So, and this is all absolutely free in different centers. It is provided across the country, and I think this is one of the best models of continuous learning which any country offers to its adult population. Now coming to the teachers. Now teachers, of course, they all have to be graduate, and they also have to hold a master's degree in whatever specialization they are doing. For example, if they are working in pre-primary, then they have to be a graduate, and they have to have a corresponding master's degree. And that is not it. Continuous professional development is integral. They constantly go into these training centers, and they constantly upgrade their skills. So teachers are seen as highly skilled, highly learned resource, the best one in the country, and they come into this. And that's why it's very hard to get into the teaching, because obviously the competition is very high, and the system, the education department, they want the best people to come in the system of schooling as a teacher. And that's why it's one of the most lucrative professions in these countries. And it should not be like a last resort, what is mostly is in our country, where people are not able to get into something, they consider, okay, we'll keep teaching as a backup. So that the whole perspective, the whole viewpoint needs to change, and we need the best people who are interested, who are really into academics and who want to learn and who want to help the young generations learn. They should be coming into teaching, and it should be the first choice. It should be their first choice basically. So these teachers in Finland are given great degree of freedom. So there is obviously a national curricula, and beyond that, the whole and the entire freedom is given to the teachers. They can design their instructions, how they are going to teach, what TLM they are going to use. They can adapt the curricula, and how they are going to assess the students is completely left to the teachers. So if with that kind of freedom, with that kind of autonomy, they are absolutely loving it, and that is why they pour their hearts into it, and they are so passionate about teaching. And now there are teacher training schools are located in universities. So universities essentially are centers of higher learning, and they are the ones where senior teachers, holding PhDs, they are the ones training these new teachers which are coming into the system. That helps a lot. And then also every teacher has to be a multi-literacy teacher. It's not just one subject. It's not just one skill. They need to know many skills. They need to know the latest skills on AI. They need to know about ICT. They need to know about languages, stuff like that. So every teacher is a multi-literacy teacher. So in that respect also, they have so many skills. They have to continuously upgrade themselves to be relevant in the system, to be more effective rather in the system. So that is the approach the teachers follow. And I am sure with all this happening, the students must be enjoying learning from these wonderful teachers in Finland. Now coming to the students, now as we talked about, there are no uniforms, so they feel really expressive, and they can really express themselves in the way they act, in the way they dress up. Of course, there is a certain degree of decorum which has to be maintained in the school, which is ensured by the school authorities, but overall there is no uniform, and there is freedom. A lot of freedom is given in terms of expression, in terms of coming out, in terms of asking questions, in terms of going out. So they call their teachers by their first name. So the hesitation is not there. They consider their teachers as friends, and they really bond well with the teacher, and the connection is really strong because they are seeing the teachers as a friend, and they can feel free to reach out. They can ask any questions, and this basically removes all the anxiety, removes all the social anxiety and the stress which people have for public speaking, for coming out, for expressing themselves. So I think these small things, this may not be a very big thing, but if you see fundamentally, it makes a big difference. Now students can also move horizontally and vertically whenever they want, and there are no dead ends. For example, in our education system, we have to complete certain things. We have to, it's a process, and if you drop out, then again you have to go back to the same level. You need to have the class 10th to give the class 12th to give the grade. So here in the Finnish education system, there are no dead ends. You can start at any point. If you feel that you have reached a certain level, with homeschooling, we can start formal schooling at whatever level you want. So there are no dead ends, and you can continue at any point. Now, no binding decisions to be made at an early age. In our education system, one of the students have to decide at the class 10th which stream they are going to. Then they have to decide which graduate stream they are going into. So these are the very important decisions which our students have to make early on. And in Finnish education, that's the thing, because it's so generic and it's so flexible and it's so fluid, that there is no decision which is binding, and they can always change that, and they can always adapt and reroute. Now each child has their own, coming to ECCE, which we call early childhood education and care in Finland, is basically the pre-primary, what we call in India. And these are basically, they have their own plan. So there's no one fixed formula. So it depends on how the individual wants to grow, what are the learning disabilities, what are the things which he or she finds best and enjoys the most. And these early years are really fun-filled learning, and total freedom is given to the students, and it is just a play-based model, and they even involve a nap in between, so that they are recharged for the evening outdoor sessions. And it's a long session, it's not just for 1 or 2 hours. They go to this pre-primary in the morning and they are there till evening, and they really bond well with all the other students, and a bigger time is given even in the ECC. So that is very interesting, and which we can learn from. And the preparatory education for those coming from outside. So some of the students may be coming from different countries, from different areas, and to bridge that, there is a certain courses where you prep, where you learn the language, where you learn the basics about Finland. So this preparatory education is also available for students. Now, by implementing all these reforms right from the beginning, Finland was able to remove some of the germs which are there in education. Let's talk about them. One is overloaded curriculum. If you look at even our curriculum, for example, there's so much into it. There's so much which we never use, which is not applied in life, which is just there because of a legacy issue. It has been there for years and it has not been taken out. But we really need to reduce the curriculum so that it's less, so that it's enjoyable, so that we focus on things we should be learning in school. So this is something which we need to get rid of. Now, excessive testing. When I was in school, I remember unit test every week. Then there is like monthly test. Then there were like quarterly tests, then half yearly, then annual. There were so many assessments were being done. Now this is excessive testing, and now that creates an environment where we only are looking forward to score marks in these exams and stay on the top. Whether we are learning anything or not, it's really not the criteria. So we need to change the approach. Testing should not be excessive once in a while, and then that should not be listed or shared or publicized. Essentially, testing should be for the purpose of the educators, for the teachers, for the school authorities, whether the children are learning or not. And based on the results, they can reroute, they can redesign the whole methodology, the pedagogy, stuff like that. And that should be the data which feeds into the system to improve the system. That's all. And it should not be something which should stress students so that they are only going after the ranks. Now, long schooling hours, we talked about it. We need to reduce it. We need to let our students be outdoors more often, into the nature, into the lap of nature, into the light, and play. It should be more about play, games, endurance, learning skills, and less number of hours sitting in the classroom. Homework overload. Now, this is something I think school offers enough time for learning the important skills which are to be learned, and there shouldn't be really, when they are going home, they should be having enough time to pursue their hobbies, to enjoy with their cousins, play along with their friends, and do whatever they really want to do. And we should really, beyond school, not really burden them with a lot of homework. Private tutoring should not really be required, because this is really, if our education system is having problems, that is why these private tutorings are being in demand. And the reason why, because school is not doing its job, and that is why parents feel and the students feel they want additional tutoring. But if everything is taken care of in the school, the remaining time the students can have for themselves, to play, to learn, to enjoy, to relax. So this is something which private tutoring is essentially a sign that the school system is having some issues and they are not able to learn at school. Irrelevant subject, there is a long list of subject. Even when it comes to our state board, still, of course, there are a long list of subjects even at early grades. So we need to reduce that. We need to get into important subjects, as we talked about: home economics, multi-literacy, and AI, LLM, ICT. These are more really relevant subjects. So we need to have a relook at all the subjects and reduce the number of subjects, remove the irrelevant subjects, and introduce relevant subjects. Now, lastly, what are they trying to achieve? What kind of transversal competence they are trying to achieve through education in Finland? So the first is thinking. They want to promote thinking among students, and they want them to learn how to learn, what NEP 2020 has been advocating. So that is the first competence they want in their child. By the time they come out of the education system at the age of 18, they should have the capacity to think about everything. They should have the capacity to learn whatever they want to learn. The second is cultural competence. So with the modern education coming in, everything, the new tech, ed tech, all these things coming up, but we should not forget the cultural relevance. They should learn about the culture. They should learn about the languages which are there in the country. So the focus is also on cultural competence, interaction, and self-expression. Now, self-expression is one of the most important skills which they should have learn when they are coming out of the education system. The focus is also on that. And then the third, taking care of oneself. Do we have the basic skills? By the time we come out of school, are we able to cook? Are we able to fix basic things? Are we able to understand the finances? How to manage our finances? How to save money when we earn? How to go out and purchase things which we need? How to drive? How to ride? So these are the basic skills everyone requires to take care of oneself, and this is something which the school education should take care of. We should be able to manage our daily lives. And then another is multi-literacy, because it's not just about the academic curricula, it's not just about the basic knowledge, it's not just about history, geography, and civics. Now there are skills which are very, very important, and that is what multi-literacy is all about. ICT. Now, nothing is, can be achieved without learning computers, without learning the basics of computers, without learning basic tools, ICT, to, learning about media, about, spreading information, about getting information. So this is also one of the fundamentals, working life competence and entrepreneurship. Now, with the lack of the jobs available, stable jobs, we need to empower them to think as entrepreneurs, all the students. And all the students have different ideas, and to give wings, they need to think as an entrepreneur. And that is why entrepreneurship should be facilitated at the school level, right at the school level itself. Participation, involvement, and building a sustainable future. Ultimately, when these individuals are coming out of the school education system, they're going to be individuals, they're going to be citizens of a country, of a state. And how can they participate? How can they give back to the community? How can they give back to the government, to the state government, to the central government? How can they give back to the nation? So these all things should be inculcated in them. They should be sensitized on that. So this should be the part of the competence framework which is there and which is already. So these things are already there in Finnish education right from the very beginning, and that is why their education is one of the best. So these were some of the very, very special features of Finnish education, and there are other Scandinavian countries which also follow similar models. So I hope you have learned something, and I hope in Meghalaya we can inculcate some of these things. The teachers, the principals, the officials from the education department, they can learn few things and together we can improve education in Meghalaya. Thank you for watching.